Mr. Douglas said he wanted to address something.
Yes. We start now, except we have no.
Well, makes the argument shorter.
It'll be a lot easier. Why don't we just start now? And you can rule right away, Your Honor. It'll be less vitriolic.
Oh, I don't know about that. These elevators are a travesty in this building. He asked.
We need a special budget for film and box.
Miss Abramson, what a delight. What a delight.
I guess cross-examine.
Could you please take your tongue out of your cheek, Judge?
I mean it sincerely. I almost miss you.
Almost, yes, I've been watching. I can imagine that you almost miss me, but are reminded of you.
Yes. All right, we've been rejoined by our prosecutors. All right, Mr. Douglas, you had something you wanted to bring to the court's attention before we invite the jury to join us?
I did, Your Honor. There was a letter that was transmitted to the court and a copy given to counsel concerning our supreme interest in quickly examining items of physical evidence. As the court is aware, the people have apparently now concluded their testing on items of evidence. There have been discussions from Mr. Blazier, Mr. Scheck, along with Mr. Clark and Mr. Harmon, and there has been an agreement that the items may be shipped to the forensics laboratory in Albany, New York, of Dr. Barbara Wolf, one of our doctors. We have not, in earlier occasions, had a chance to physically touch any of the items of evidence, any of the serological evidence, mind you. We had not had a chance to take our own pictures. We were hoping that this can be done soon, and we were seeking to introduce the protocol consistent with that which was used with Cellmark, so that they would be allowed to have a representative present for a chain of custody matters. They would be allowed to observe the cutting or the splitting of any samples. However, they would not be allowed to watch the actual testing so that we can maintain the integrity of our testing methodologies. I wanted to try to get some sort of closure on this issue so that we may quickly be able to get the items taken back, tested, and then returned before they'd be used in this actual trial. Given that we are currently on the domestic discord aspect of the trial, where the physical evidence is less probative or even necessary, I was hopeful that I could fashion some resolution today so that we could have those items sent out in the coming days.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
I did receive a photocopy of the fax letter, and I don't recall, however, that was early in the morning as we were trying to deal with other matters. Ms. Clark?
Yes, Your Honor, I spoke to Mr. Douglas this afternoon, and he informed me at 2:45 that he wanted to address this matter at 3:15. I called upstairs to find out if I could get Rock and Woody here because they did have very specific requests about the procedures that they wanted to have employed. Unfortunately, they are at SID. They will not be able to make it until tomorrow. However, I asked that they be available first thing in the morning tomorrow to address it.
All right, that sounds reasonable. So, Mr. Douglas, I have not had the opportunity to read that letter because of the other matters we had this morning.
Very well, Your Honor.
All right, but
so we'll take it up in the morning?
First thing.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else before we ask the jury to join us?
Well, the problem is, I think that you're just out of abundance for caution, we should advise the court that after we finish this witness, I think before the next witness, Mr. Darden has indicated it'll be necessary to have perhaps a 402 hearing. May have mentioned that to the court, so I wanted to let the court know that.
All right, who's the next witness?
Ron Ship, Your Honor.
Well, that's right. Okay.
So that may require a chamber conference before we
All right,
go on to
we'll
that.
start off immediately.
All right, I'm aware of the issue. All right, thank you. All right, Deputy Magnolia, let's have the jury, please. Reflect all the parties are again present before the court. Detective Ferrell is on the witness stand. Detective Ferrell, you're reminded you're still under oath. And Mr. Darden, do you wish to complete your direct examination?
I have no further questions at this time.
All right. Mr. Cochran.
Very kind of you. Good afternoon, Mr. Farrell.
Good afternoon, counsel.
You are presently assigned to the West Los Angeles Detective Division, is that correct?
That is not correct. I'm currently assigned to West Traffic Division.
All right. You formerly worked West Los Angeles Detectives.
Correct.
All right. And how long have you been in the West Los Angeles Division altogether?
Approximately 7 years.
And you're a sergeant, is that correct?
I am a detective.
Okay. And before that, you worked as a sergeant?
I was a patrolman, training officer.
All right. And now you're working as a detective?
That is correct. I'm a detective supervisor.
All right. Now, in connection with this particular case, the matter was initially handled by an Officer Edwards, is that correct?
Correct.
And you had occasion to review his reports of January 1st, 1989, then you started handling the case as the detective, is that correct?
Yes.
And in that connection, you wrote some reports also, is that correct?
Yes.
And you shared with us that in the course of your investigation, you prepared a report. In that report, Mr. Simpson talked to you over the phone, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was the date of that? Was that January 3rd or thereabouts?
Yes.
All right, so the first time you talked to Mr. O.J. Simpson was January 3rd, and that was in this phone conversation when you called his house, is that right?
Correct.
His wife answered the phone,
That's correct.
and thereafter then you talked with him.
Correct.
Now, in that conversation, Mr. Simpson advised you that both he and his wife had been drinking after coming home from a party, is that correct?
Yes, that's what I recall.
And they had been, as far as you knew, to a New Year's Eve party, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall what time he indicated they came home from this party, sir?
No, I do not.
All right. And he told you that after that, after they come home from this party and had been drinking, a verbal dispute broke out.
Yes.
He told you that. And that he admitted that in this verbal dispute, there was a physical altercation that resulted in kind of a mutual wrestling type of altercation, is the words he used, right?
That's how he described it.
All right. And that he told you thereafter was that when he saw his wife, he was surprised to see a bump or a bruise on her forehead. Is that correct?
Correct.
And by the time that you had this conversation with Mr. Simpson, you, of course, had some Polaroid shots. Is that correct?
Yes.
Been taken? Do you recall how many pictures there were?
3.
And they were of Mr. Cole Brown Simpson?
Yes.
And with regard to the Polaroid camera, do you know, or was there such a camera at West Los Angeles Station during the early days of January of 1989?
I would assume so. I have never used one.
All right, you would assume there was, and I presume that would be something that would be owned by the city of Los Angeles. Is that correct? Camera.
That or the officers themselves own them.
All right. And as such, the film, if the city of Los Angeles owned such a Polaroid camera, the film would generally be also owned by the city of Los Angeles, right?
Can you ask him if he knows?
If you know.
I would assume so.
Right. If the city of Los Angeles does have the wherewithal to buy film, don't they?
I hope so, yes.
Yes. And they did back in January of 1989, did they not?
I believe so, yes.
All right. This is in Orange County. So we still have, we still.
Not yet.
Not yet. So, not yet. We still have funds, right?
We may have a significant impact on this, Mr. Cochran.
Well, Your Honor, then I better hurry up, so I don't want to cause any
I
further
think
delay.
we talked enough about Polaroids.
At any rate, you're aware that there were facilities for taking pictures of individuals' injuries back in January of 1989 at West Los Angeles Station.
Not facilities that are designed to take photographs of injuries. We prefer to have the victim be transported to SID Photo Lab for proper photographic type things because they have better equipment, obviously.
I understand that, but I mean where you had a situation where someone was not transported to SID for photographs, you became aware that there was an ability at West Los Angeles Station to take photographs.
I assume that since I had 3 photographs given to me.
And you saw them. All right. Very well. Now, in your conversation of January the 3rd that we've been talking about, you spoke also with Nicole Brown Simpson. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And I presume, sir, that you had never met with or talked with either of these individuals that is either Nicole Brown Simpson or O.J. Simpson up to that point. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in her conversation with you, did she tell you what the...
Objection, Your Honor, to form the question.
May I
Sustained.
finish the question, Your Honor? I'd like to finish the question.
I was asking if she said something.
I was going to phrase the question in a way that you might not find objectionable.
Well, I'll hear the question.
All right, that's what I want to try to do. In your conversation with Nicole Brown Simpson, was the subject matter broached of what the subject was the subject matter broached of what caused this argument between she and her husband in the early morning hours of January the 1st of 1989? And I said yes or no.
She did not give me details about what actually caused the argument.
All right, now let me get back to my question. Was the subject matter of that argument, the cause of that argument, discussed? Yes or no?
Not that I recall, not the subject matter of what caused the verbal dispute.
All right. Did you at any time have a conversation with Detective Edwards wherein he indicated to you whether or not he'd been told what the subject matter of that argument was?
Not that I recall.
And you never saw in any reports, did you? Any of Detective Edwards' reports, the subject matter of the argument?
I read his follow-up report, which I requested. The subject matter of the actual fight, no, I don't recall seeing anything like that.
All right. So as you sit here now, even today, you don't really know what caused this altercation or confrontation. Is that correct, sir?
No, I do not.
All right, sir. Now, you then had occasion, I guess, after the January 3rd conversation, which was the first one, to have a second conversation with Mr. O.J. Simpson. Is that
Yes,
right?
I did.
And the second conversation was on or about January 5th, 1989. Is that correct?
Yes,
And in that conversation, Mr. O.J. Simpson contacted you. Is that correct?
that's correct. He called me out my desk.
And, of course, you recognize his voice again. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yes, I did.
And at that time, had you completed your investigation into this particular matter?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I cleared the crime. I identified the individual who was responsible, and I believe I had enough to present to the city attorney's office to seek a prosecution.
All right, but as of the date January 5th, 1989, there'd been no determination made at that point whether or not the city attorney was going to file. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, and you so indicate that in your report?
Yes.
Okay. You completed your particular investigation, right?
Yes.
All right. And in this conversation that you had on January 5th, is this the conversation where Mr. Simpson voluntarily stated to you certain concerns and feelings that he had regarding this case?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Simpson told you, did he not, that he regretted the entire incident? Is that correct?
Yes.
That he was sorry that you, as a police officer, had to get involved in his personal problems?
Yes.
And he went on to claim responsibility and say that he knew what his conduct was wrong. Did he say that?
Yes, he did.
And they didn't mean to harm his wife, Nicole. He told you that, did he not?
Yes.
He went on to tell you that he planned to schedule both himself and Nicole Brown Simpson for counseling, did he not?
Yes.
And that he'd ask you to communicate that information to the city attorney's office when you took the case to them for filing or whatever. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
And in that conversation of January 5th, you told him at some point that you felt that at some point he had to stand up and admit responsibility for any actions that he'd taken on January 1st. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as the investigating officer, you are aware, are you not, that at some point thereafter, after January 5th, Mr. Simpson did, in fact, come into a court, enter a no-contest plea, and resolve that matter. Isn't that correct?
Objection, cause for hearsay.
So
Overruled, he's the investigating officer. Do you know?
I never saw Mr. Simpson in court, ever.
All right. Well, you didn't see him in court, but you became aware, did you not, that the matter was resolved by way of a nolo contendere plea by Mr. O.J. Simpson. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
And as the investigating officer, you knew that matter was resolved without a trial. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, let's back up for a moment. Prior to Mr. Simpson entering the no contest plea, did Mrs. Nicole Simpson seek to drop all charges against him?
When I first met her on the 4th,
Objection.
What's the objection?
Can we approach?
Sure. Objections overruled.
You got the question in mind? I can try to phrase it again. Certainly, sir. Prior to Mr. Simpson entering a plea to this misdemeanor charge of 273.5 PC, did Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson indicate a desire to drop all charges against her husband and have a city attorney hearing?
Well, when I first met her on the 4th, she brought the kids with her, and I discussed what happens with these type of cases. And I wanted her input about her feelings towards prosecution. At that time, she said if she could avoid it, she doesn't want to prosecute. But I told her that no matter what she told me, even though she didn't want to prosecute, I'd have to take the case to the city attorney's office. Then I discussed some of the options that the city attorney may do, and one of those is the city attorney hearing. And then at that time, she said, well, I would like to have that. I think that would be neat.
All right, let me just back up. In your report, you spell it out. On January 4th, '89, you contacted Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson. At that time, she told you she did not want to prosecute, but would welcome a city attorney hearing. That's an informal hearing at the city attorney's office, right?
Correct.
You sit around with the city attorney and you discuss this matter, right?
Yes.
And so thereafter, you told her that the city attorney could make their own judgment. They may want to go forward with the charges whether or not she wanted to prosecute or not. Is that what you said?
That is correct.
All right. And ultimately, we know that Mr. Simpson did enter this no contest plea to the misdemeanor charges, right?
Yes.
You were not in court that day, however.
Yes, I was.
All right. So you did see him enter the plea.
No, I never saw Mr. Simpson. I believe I went with with the city attorney, who was Rob Pringle at the time. I appeared at court that day, and I believe I stayed outside. They kept me outside in the hall.
Okay.
So they just told me what happened.
So you were in the hallway.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand. Now, just before the break, Mr. Darden was starting to ask you some questions about your investigation about other incidents involving Rockingham. And then we took a break. Is that correct?
Yes.
When you took the break, did you go up and talk to Mr. Darden about that?
No, we just went up to the office. I had a drink of water.
All right. He never asked you what the answer to the questions are going to be?
No, he did not.
He didn't say he was going to come back and not ask you those questions?
No, he did not.
What if I ask you those questions?
I'll answer them.
Do I want to hear the answers? I'll strike that. Now, at any rate, you, in the course of your investigation as one of the detectives, you told us just prior to the break that you had occasion to talk with some officers at that particular station. Is that correct?
That's correct. The city attorney asked me to look into possible other incidences up at the residence.
All right, so you talked to some officers. How many, just tell me a number, how many officers did you talk to altogether?
I can't recall, maybe 10.
And did you take any reports from any of those officers?
I requested, if they had any information, to write out a report and give it to me.
And you got a report from one officer, did you not?
That's correct.
And that officer's name is Mark Furman?
That is correct.
And was that the only written report that you received?
Yes.
And Mark Furman wrote you a report about an incident to which he'd allegedly responded at the Rockingham residence back in 1985. Is that correct?
He wrote a letter to the city attorney, yes.
And the letter he wrote in 1989 was referred back to an alleged incident in 1985. Is that correct?
Correct.
And would I be correct in assuming that that was the only letter that was sent to the city attorney in connection with the case of the January 1st, 1989?
That's correct. That's what I recall, yes.
And with regard to your search, did you search any records to see whether or not there were any radio calls to that location?
What the city attorney did,
I'm talking about you now, not the city
myself?
attorney. You, yes.
No, I did. All I did was contact the communications division of Los Angeles Police Department.
All right. So you did not check any records in West Los Angeles regarding possible calls that had taken place prior to January 1st, 1989?
I did my normal search of the computer.
All right. And you didn't find any calls, right?
None of them documented.
All right. And then by none of them documented, that means they weren't in the computer, right?
Police report.
Right. There were no police reports in the computer, right?
I couldn't find them.
All right. And you looked for them, and you were doing a diligent job, weren't you?
I tried.
You were a responsible officer at that time, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you're responsible today, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You know how to use the computer?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You didn't find any police reports. And the only officer who stepped forward to write a report was this Mark Furman, right?
Yes.
And did you know Mark Furman prior to this particular time?
Objection, Your Honor. What's the relevance?
I'll link it up.
He's been working West LA, and we all know each other at West LA.
So your answer is yes, you knew him?
Yes, I did know him.
All right. How did you happen to come to talk with him?
Well, he was one of the senior officers there. He was one of the officers that had most time there, and the city attorney asked me to look into the past 5 years, and he had been there at least 5 years.
All right. So when you told us about the talking to 10 senior officers, he would have been one of the 10 senior officers, is that right?
Yes.
All right. And then he then wrote this report. And was that report, the letter that he wrote around the middle of January of 1989, was that sent to you or to the city attorney?
I believe he gave me the original copy of it, and I in turn gave it to the city attorney's office.
And you're still in West Los Angeles now, are you not?
No, I am not.
And where are you now?
I'm at West Traffic Division.
All right. When did you leave the West Los Angeles division?
December of 1990.
You described when you were talking to Mr. Darden that your conversation with Mr. Simpson was a pleasant one, isn't that correct?
Phone conversation, yes.
Was it fairly common knowledge among West Los Angeles officers that on occasion some of them would in fact stop by Mr. O.J. Simpson's residence on a social basis?
I have no knowledge of that.
You had not done that yourself,
No, I have not.
but you don't know about any of the others, do you?
No.
But when you checked the computers for any other police reports or any other trips that officers had made out to the Rockingham resident after January 1st, 1989, you could not find any others after your diligent search. Is that right?
All I was looking for was
Before
documented
January
reports.
1st. And you could not find any
That is
documented
correct.
reports, right?
Not responses by police officers via the radio call, only documented reports, either by Mr. Simpson himself or Nicole. I did not find any.
Okay, that was the question. I thank you very kindly, sir.
Mr. Darden?
Detective, you indicated that the defendant pled no contest, filed a battery charge.
That's correct.
He didn't plead guilty.
No contest.
And in fact, he struck a plea bargain in that case, didn't he?
Yes, with the court report, please. All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Darden, you may continue.
You also indicated that you had a pleasant telephone conversation with the defendant, detective,
Yes, I did.
but you weren't about to arrest him at that time, were you?
No?
Did you ask him why he fled the location on January 189?
Yes, I did. His response was that he was upset that the police were out there and weren't happy that the police were out there. And then that's when he decided to leave.
You indicated to Mr. Cochran, or you told Mr. Cochran that you were only searching for documented reports. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay, you were searching for documented reports in your search for other situations where the police went to Rockingham?
Yes.
Now, there are other types of reports that officers fill out, is that correct?
Yes, there are.
They have logs, is that right?
Daily field activities reports. That's correct.
Okay. And what types of information would a patrol officer include on a daily field activity report?
That causes speculation. I didn't give it further foundation. Can that question?
No, I think he testified that he's been a patrol officer, was a training officer. I think he has sufficient foundation to answer what this is. Sufficient experience.
The report itself documents the time the radio car gets the call, its location, type of call, and when the call is finished and what the officer actually did at the location. And it's all documented in the officer's own writing.
And that daily field activity report is a report completely different from the report filled out by Detective Edwards, is that right?
That is correct.
And what's the difference between the daily field activity report and the report filled out by Detective Edwards?
The follow-up report filled by Detective Edwards is a continuation of the crime report. The DFARs that we call it is just a daily log of activities that the officers does in the field. It's not part of a crime report or anything like that.
Are DFARs, or daily field activity reports, computerized?
Not that I know.
Were they computerized back in 1989?
I don't think so. They were not.
How many officers were there assigned to West LA Division back on January 189?
Quite a few. And an exact number I don't know. Over 100?
And is that 100 per shift or 100?
I wish it was 100 per shift, but it's maybe about 30 officers per shift.
30 patrol officers per shift.
Correct.
And each day, each patrol officer fills out a log?
If they are assigned by themselves, yes, but most officers in the Los Angeles Police Department are assigned to 8 cars. That's 2 manned to each patrol car. 2 officers, I'm sorry.
So had you gone back and searched all the DFARs for the 5 years prior to 1989, that would have been quite a job, right?
That's
Just
correct.
one question, object to the form of that question.
Well,
Meetings,
it's an innocuous point.
That would have been quite a job, right?
Yes, it would have.
And you would have had to have done a hand search.
Correct.
You also indicated that Nicole Brown asked that you not prosecute the case.
Yes.
You've had training in domestic violence, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
That's not uncommon for domestic violence victims to...
Object.
Sustained.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Yes. At the sidebar with the court clerk, please. All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Darden, you may continue.
I'm sorry, was the objection sustained, Your Honor?
The objection is sustained pending a foundation.
Detective Farrell, what training, if any, have you had in domestic violence?
Basic academy training when I first came on the police department. Also in-service training with the Los Angeles Police Department on domestic violence.
And did you take a course?
Yes, I did.
And how many hours?
It was a 3-day in-service training for advanced field officers, which I believe totaled a 24-hour course.
And have you responded to domestic violence calls in the past?
Yes, I have.
Many?
Quite a few, yes, sir.
How many would you say?
Say over, I could only say hundreds.
And have you been the investigating officer on domestic violence cases in the past?
Yes, I have.
And have you participated in the prosecution of domestic violence cases in the past?
Yes, I have.
Have you read literature having to do with domestic violence?
Yes, I have.
Have you read literature having to do with the causes and effects of domestic violence?
Yes, I have.
Have you spoken to victims of domestic violence?
Yes, I have.
And have you watched them testify?
Yes.
Have you spoken to others who are professionals and who are experts in the area of domestic violence?
Yes, I have.
And have you ever testified in court as an expert on domestic violence?
I have never testified as an expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Any recross?
Yes, Your Honor, just a couple questions.
Detective Ferrell, when you were asked by the city attorney to try and determine whether or not there had been other calls in the 5 years or so that preceded January 1st, 1989, did they give you kind of a blanket instruction to do the best that you could?
Yes.
And you, in the course of trying to carry out their request, you did the best that you could, did you not?
Yes.
And then you then reported back to them after you had done the best that you could, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And in doing the best that you could, you got this one letter from Mark Furman, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you very kindly. I have nothing further.
Mr. Darden?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. All right, Detective, thank you very much. I'm going to excuse you from further testimony. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else except for the attorneys in the case.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Darden, as to the people's next witness.
Your Honor, before we call the next witness, I have in my hand here what appears to be a Xerox copy of a single-page letter. It is dated January 18, 1989. It was directed to the city attorney for the city of Los Angeles, and it is signed by Detective Mark Furman. May it be marked People 7 for identification.
People 7. All right. Mr. Darden, how do you wish to proceed at this point?
I think we should resolve the preliminary legal issue that we have to resolve.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a legal issue that I need to resolve before the next witness can be presented. And given the lateness of the hour this afternoon, I'm going to recess as far as you are concerned this afternoon. Please remember my admonition to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to talk to you about the case. And you are not to perform any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Have a pleasant evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, and we'll have more witnesses for you. All right, see you tomorrow. All right, I'm going to ask counsel to remain.
Suggests that Mr. Simpson and Mr. Shipp had a conversation about some sort of a polygraph or the taking of a polygraph. There are allegations in a book about which I'm aware that suggests that Mr. Simpson discussed some sort of a dream with Mr. Shipp. Is it possible, Your Honor, that we approach to continue the remaining areas of concern?
I don't see the necessity for that except to conceal the issue before the court, Your Honor. And the issue is going to be in front of the jury, so we may as well do it in the open.
Well, that's what the hearing's about. How does he know that?
Well, Mr. Douglas gets to answer
Yes.
his argument for himself.
Court sidebar.
All right, with report, please. All right, back on the record. Mr. Cochran,
Yes, Your Honor.
have you had the opportunity to talk to your client about Ronald Shipp?
Yes, I have, Your Honor. He has been aware of it for some time, so he's aware of that. And maybe I should just state for the record
Certainly,
the
please.
situation. Your Honor, I understand that the next people's witness is Mr. Ronald Shipp. And Mr. Shipp is related to me. He's a cousin. His father is the father of my cousins. He has a different mother. And I've shared that with Mr. Simpson, and as such, there's a potential conflict, but I've shared it with Mr. Simpson, and he waives that conflict. Because of the potential relationship, I will not question this particular witness, however.
All right. Mr. Simpson, is this agreeable to you that you have no objection to Mr. Cochran remaining as your counsel, despite the fact the prosecution will be calling a relative of his as a witness? Great, thank you. All right, counsel, you've broached to me an interesting legal issue that I had no idea was coming again. Thank you. We're within 10 minutes of the close of the business day in any event. Counsel, if you have any cases on the issue, please fax them to the court. I'll pick them up first thing tomorrow morning. I'll be in the building for a while, too. Anything else? All right. If you'll provide that, that'll be the standing order. All right. Anything else, counsel?
What time do we adjourn tomorrow?
9 o'clock.
Adjourn, is it 4 o'clock or 3:30 on Wednesday?
4 o'clock tomorrow. I'm sorry? That was the day the juror had to go to the doctor's appointment that created the other problem for us. All right, we'll stand in recess till 9 o'clock. Ms. Abramson, can I see you, please?
Please clear the court.